Hey everyone, and welcome back to Learn English Fluently Academy. It's fantastic to have you back, whether you're a returning learner or joining us for the first time. English can be such a fun and fascinating language to learn, but there are a few areas that tend to confuse us. One of those areas is modal verbs. You've probably heard words like can, could, will, and would being thrown around a lot, right? They seem so simple at first, but they have so many different uses depending on the situation. So today, we're going to dive deep into these modal verbs and help you get the hang of them once and for all. By the end of this lesson, you'll not only understand the difference between them, but you'll also know exactly how to use them like a native speaker. Whether you're talking about abilities, requests, possibilities, or even just trying to be polite, you'll soon see how versatile these little words can be. So grab your notebook, sit back, and let's get started with one of the most important and fun topics in English grammar. Mistake number one, can for ability versus permission. Let's start with can, one of the most commonly used modal verbs. Now, we all know that can is a powerhouse when it comes to talking about ability. For example, I can play the piano, or she can run a mile in under 6 minutes. In both of these sentences, can is telling us about someone's ability or skill. You're saying, hey, this person is able to do something. But here's where it gets interesting. Can is also used when we're talking about permission. Have you ever asked someone for permission? Like, can I borrow your book? Or can we leave the meeting early? In these examples, can is more about asking if something is allowed. So can isn't just about ability, it's also about asking for permission. Pretty cool, right? Now here's the little catch. If you want to sound a bit more formal or respectful, especially when speaking to people you don't know well, it's better to use may instead of can. So instead of saying, can I go to the bathroom? You'd say, may I go to the bathroom? It's a small difference, but it makes a big impact in formal situations, like in business or when you're talking to a teacher. So in short, can is all about ability and asking for permission. But if you're aiming for a bit more formality, switch to may. Moving on to mistake number two. Now let's move on. Mistake number two, could for politeness and possibility. Could is kind of like can's more polite, respectful cousin. You'll often use could to show possibility, but also to make requests sound softer. So let's start with the possibility part. Could is great when you're talking about something that might happen, but isn't definite. For example, I could go to the store later, but I'm not sure. Here, we're talking about things that might happen in the future, but we don't know for sure. So when you use could, you're saying that something is possible, but not a guarantee, but a chance. But could really shines when you want to make a polite request. Instead of using the directness of can, could softens the tone. For example, could I borrow your pen for a moment? Or could we possibly have the meeting tomorrow instead of today? Notice how could here makes everything sound a bit more respectful and polite. It's like you're asking without making any assumptions. You're giving the person the freedom to say no, which is why it feels much gentler than can. Mistake number three, will versus would for future predictions and polite requests. All right, moving on to will and would. These two are super important, especially when you're talking about the future or making requests. But they do have some key differences that can trip people up. Let's start with will. We use will when we're predicting the future or talking about something that's definite. For example, I will call you when I get there. Another example, We will start the meeting at 10 a.m. With will, we're confident that something will happen and we're usually sure about it. You can almost think of it as a promise. It's for something you're absolutely certain about or something you're committed to doing. But here's the twist. Would is used when you're talking about a polite request or a hypothetical situation. It's like the more gentle version of will. For example, would you like some coffee? Or would you mind helping me with this? See how would softens the request? It's much more polite and gives the person a chance to say no without feeling uncomfortable. You're being respectful of their time and energy. Now, if you're talking about a situation that's imagined or hypothetical, you'd use would as well. For example, if I had more time, I would travel the world. Another example, if she asked, I would help her. In these examples, you're not talking about things that are definitely going to happen, but instead you're imagining what you would do in a situation that's not real right now. Mistake number 4, understanding shall and should for suggestions. Now we've got shall and should, two models that many learners find tricky because they're both used for suggestions, but in slightly different ways. And mostly, let's start with shall. It's often used in more formal situations and it's mostly used with I or we. It's often used to suggest something in a polite or gentle way. For example, shall we go for a walk? Or shall I open the window? It's kind of like asking, what do you think? It's a very polite way of suggesting something, and it's used more often in formal settings or in British English. On the other hand, should is used for advice and obligations. It's more common in everyday conversations. For example, you should try the pasta at that restaurant. Should is perfect when you're giving advice or making suggestions that are more serious. It's not as formal as shall, and it's used more often when you're talking to people you're comfortable with. Mistake number 5, must versus have to for obligation. Let's wrap things up with must and have to. Both of these modal verbs express obligation, but they're used in slightly different ways. When you use must, it's usually because you feel a strong personal obligation. You're saying you must do something because it's really important to you. For example, you must wear a helmet when riding a bike. Or, I must finish this project tonight. Must comes from a place of personal necessity. It's like an internal rule that you set for yourself. Now, have to is a bit more external. It's usually used for obligations that come from outside forces. So imagine this. When your boss tells you to do something, you're likely to say, I have to finish this report by 5 p.m. Have to is more about external rules or things you are required to do by other people or systems, not necessarily because you personally feel like doing them. And there you have it, you've made it through the world of modal verbs. Can, could, will, would, and all the subtle ways they change meaning depending on the situation. These little words may seem small, but they play a huge role in making your English sound natural and fluent. I hope this lesson helped clear up some confusion and now you'll feel confident using these modal verbs in everyday conversation. Keep practicing and you'll be speaking like a native in no time. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next lesson. Bye!